Welcome to the Soul Archaeology podcast, a space for connection, resonance, witnessing, and learning. Together we'll harvest medicine from the spiral of life, sharing conversations with other embodied humans who have navigated their own initiations and found alignment with their true soul essence. With weekly astrology, energy updates, embodied conversation, and channeled teachings, this is a space for you to land and find resonance with the spiral of your own soul. Hello, and welcome back to Soul Archaeology. How are you feeling post-solar eclipse? We're officially out of the eclipse portal. We're still in the eclipse window for another month. But the energy begins to integrate now. I always find that on the other side of eclipses, there's oftentimes these, little waves that sort of arise of insight, activations, triggers, points of clarity or realizations that surface to show us what we're integrating. And something that's come up a lot for me over the last few weeks is that when we make these big internal shifts, we're going to see it reflected on the physical plane. Everything we're choosing and interacting with internally will have an energetic wave that rises and surfaces within our own physical reality. And especially now, as we begin to move more into Aries energy, Neptune just passed into Aries, especially as Uranus moves into Gemini later this year in July, we're going to see the ripples and waves of energy more intimately. We're going to see the shifts manifest and materialize on the physical plane faster and quicker. The energy is speeding up, especially as we move out of these retrogrades, as we move into April. April is still very much a bridge month, but we're beginning to feel the energy start to build. We're beginning to feel the movement, the fire, the heat, the rebirth, the life force. But we're still in this Piscean energy of the unseen and the mystery. And it's in Pisces where we really realize how interconnected everything is, how connected to the unseen, the mystery, to each other we are, how our work, our internal work, ripples out and affects those in our lives and even the greater collective. We are all interconnected. This is a web of consciousness. We're all part of the same consciousness. So when we bring something through our own consciousness, it has a ripple effect. When we heal something internally, when we're working on healing something, when we're bringing things up that are connected to others in our lives, we will see that ripple effect play out on the physical plane as well. One of my favorite stories is when I first started psychic development work and intuitive healing, I was working on clearing my own psychic space. So I was working on clearing that space out every day. It was the first time I was getting in touch with it intentionally, and I was building that muscle. And there was a specific piece I was working on with my mom. I wasn't clear on what it was. I wasn't in that space yet to really start to channel or decipher the meanings of things. I was simply seeing energy, but I was clearing some energy, my mom's energy, out of my psychic space. And it was really kind of sticky. It was like hard to let go. I was resisting clearing it, but I moved through it. And the next day, my mom called me and told me that she had been working with a practitioner who brought up a memory, something that was in her field. And they didn't tell her what it was. They just said it was related to something. And she, after I did this clearing, was able to call that memory forward and see it and witness it and integrate it and really understand the patterning that was being created from that memory in her own life. So what I realized is I was actually holding that energy for her. I was holding that memory in my own psychic space. I was holding it in my body. And when I made the decision to release it released it to her so she could bring it through her own consciousness to clear it for herself. And this is the beauty of healing, is that we're not only healing ourselves, we're healing backwards and forwards in time. I see it all the time in my mentorship containers. When we're working on something, a big pattern with a parent or a sibling or a partner, when we begin to clear it through our own consciousness, through our own physicality and our own bodies, when we clear it from our own cells, we enable that energy, that contract, that bind to be witnessed by another. We free it up from our own systems. We release our side of that memory, that contract, whatever it is that we're holding on to with someone else. And we give them space to process it in the way they need to. So it frees up the energy to be processed and integrated and witnessed and seen. But when we're holding it for someone else, they're not actually able to go in and do their work around it. And this is the beauty of Pisces. It shows us how we're all interconnected. It gives us a glimpse into the unseen, what's beyond the veil. And so many realizations might be coming up for you. And it's helpful. It's helpful for us to feel and sense what's beyond the veil, what's within the unseen, what we can't necessarily maybe touch and feel with our physical eyes or our hands, but what's actually really there. So there are so many karmic layers that are dissolving right now. It's fertile ground for incredibly profound and deep healing to unfold. But it can also feel confusing, chaotic, even maybe overwhelming, because so much is swirling around, being brought up and through our consciousness. So April is a bridge month. Things begin to pick up this month. The fog begins to clear. Venus and Mercury both go direct and move out of their shadow in April. We close out eclipse season. Neptune enters Aries and begins to pick up speed. But Saturn is still in Pisces. The North Node is still in Pisces. The beginning of the month, Venus or Mercury are still both in Pisces. Mars is still in its shadow until early May. We have some activation points in April, but for the most part, it's going to feel not as slow and intense as maybe January and February felt, but we're going to be in this bridge, being pushed forward as we get pulled backwards. We're still seeing the past surface, watching it dissolve as we enter into the next chapter, the next layer. And I talk a lot about that in the last episode, how we are moving from these deep Piscean waters onto solid, firm ground. Materialization, actualization, the 0 point of Aries. And Neptune is ushering us into that shift. This week is really dominated by Neptune's shift into Aries, which happens on March 30th, and Venus's conjunction with the North Node in Pisces on April 3rd. Next week, both Venus and Mercury station direct. So this is the last full week of Mercury retrograde, the last full week of Venus retrograde, even though it's still retrograde next week as well until the 12th. But we're going to be in this in-between space, this liminal space that we've talked about before. And both Venus and Mercury are retrograding through Pisces right now, meeting with the North Node, surfacing themes around the unseen, the unknown, boundaries, connectedness, karma. We're swimming through the past and also revisiting themes that were surfacing in January as well. Themes around illusion, boundaries within our connections when Venus was conjoined with the North Node in January. Looking back into the past where we hold illusions or idealism. I talk about this in the last episode, how Venus can sometimes get lost in Pisces. It can forget its footing, its groundedness, its individual self. It can get lost in the romanticism. So as we look back, as we turn inward with this retrograde time, it's inviting us into a space of reflection. You might be seeing these things come forward, these patterns where you pedestal someone, false idols, layers of illusions related to relationships, money, values, where you're living perhaps in a dream with rose-colored glasses, afraid to really feel and sense the truth of a situation or of a relationship. And this is an opportunity to harvest medicine that you might not have seen before when we had that Venus North Node conjunction in January. So we have another Venus North Node conjunction with Venus being retrograde. So it's more inward. It's a deeper layer. It's in the descent within your own subconscious. And there's insights, there's medicine, there's revelations, realizations within this space. Maybe something you sensed before, but that you're fully grasping now. Maybe where you need firmer boundaries in order to align with this North Node in Pisces, or where you need to open to deeper layers of love, dissolving resistance or fear or avoidance. As Venus and the North Node meet this week, relational themes will be heightened. People from the past, old relationships, old relational themes, your dream space is probably highly active right now. We are gathering information, gathering bits and pieces from different areas to really prepare us for this giant leap that we'll be taking towards the end of April and into May. This week begins with Neptune entering Aries, which is one of the more significant astrological events of this decade, but especially 2025. Neptune is intuition, imagination. It's the unconscious, the unseen. It's the ruler of Pisces in the 12th house. It's all that's beyond the veil. But it also represents escapism and deception. Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces since 2011. It spends around 14 years or so in each sign. This year, it begins its ingress into Aries. On March 30th, 2025, it enters Aries. On October 22nd, 2025, it retrogrades back into Pisces until it enters Aries once again on January 26th of 2026. And that's when it starts to meet with Saturn. We have the 0 point of Aries, Saturn and Neptune conjunction next February. So we're starting to get a glimpse into what this Neptune and Aries transit will really feel like. From now until October, we'll start to sense and feel into what this massive shift will materialize in our lives. And Neptune is an outer planet. It moves slowly. It takes about 160-ish years to move through the zodiac. So the last time Neptune ingressed into Aries was 1861, which was the beginning of the American Civil War. And historically, Neptune in Aries has been a time of upheaval. I think it's because we move from this marriage of Neptune and Pisces together into this fiery cardinal energy of Aries. It's action, individuation, power, ego. It's also the ending of something and the beginning of something else. It's a huge threshold. The threshold between Pisces and Aries. It's the end point and the beginning point. And outer planets move slowly. Pluto takes about 20-ish years to move through a zodiac sign. Neptune takes about 14. And Uranus, 7. The themes of outer planets really drip into our consciousness. They move slowly. It's not something we notice in our daily lives, but it's the type of change that carves us over time. They shape and form so much but it happens over longer periods of time, almost like a glacier carving the earth. Their effects are profound but slow to take shape. So they rule larger life themes. So the last time Neptune was in Aries, Uranus was actually also in Gemini. And if you think about it, these two planets really work together. And this is the larger theme of 2025, 2026, is that all of the outer planets move into new signs. They move into air and fire, along with Saturn moving into cardinal fire as well. So this is a major turning of a page. It's action, initiation. It's fast change that you can see and feel and touch on the physical plane. Many people associate Neptune and Aries with war, and it makes sense that there's been significant warlike events that have occurred during these transits. And specifically, I talk a lot about this in my 2025 forecast episode, but specifically, the conjunction between Neptune and Saturn is called the Fall of Empires. And that point throughout history has been a significant point of the changing of guards, a shift in power. And when we look at the overarching, general, collective, zoomed out perspective of Neptune and Aries, Pluto and Aquarius, Uranus and Gemini, it's all about the reconfiguration and redistribution of power, wisdom, truth, knowledge, decentralization, and coming back to the individual. With Pluto and Aquarius, it's decentralizing knowledge, truth, wisdom, power. With Neptune and Aries, it's looking at where we hold illusions around needing someone in power to keep us safe, someone to save us. The whole collective shift over the next 20 years is focused on power to the people, activating our own unique truth channel that holds wisdom and power, our own innate connection to source, and our own ability to access the wisdom that we've been conditioned to believe can only come from a middleman. So we'll start to see these themes trickle into our awareness, our consciousness, our daily lives. We are opening a 20-year chapter with Pluto moving into Aquarius, Neptune moving into Aries, Uranus moving into Gemini. There's this whole 7 to 20-year theme that's opening this year. And this week is a significant point in this larger shift. Of course, when we had Pluto enter Aquarius last year, now we have Neptune entering Aries. We'll have Saturn entering Aries in May, Uranus entering Gemini in July. And as Neptune crosses the 0 point, we're moving from illusion and delusion to truth, realism, what's real, tactile, available, and raw. The 0 point of Aries is the first degree, the creation point of the entire zodiac system. It's the beginning point. It's the I am point, the point of realization, actualization, mobilization. The 0 point of Aries is raw and real. It's a baby before it's conditioned, a baby right out of the womb. It's authentic and pure. And it's the point from which we create. So we must be discerning when a planet, especially an outer planet, is at this point. Because what we create during this timeline will ripple out throughout space and time. It will determine how this next chapter unfolds for us. Like I said, Neptune has been moving through Pisces since 2011, and Neptune is at home in Pisces. It feels safe, carefree, dreamy, dissolved, free to move without boundaries, without limits. Pisces is undefined. It's the disillusion of self and a connection to a higher power. And Aries is defined. It's the self, individualism, identity, action, individuation. We're moving from being the observer, from being in this more receptive state, to full participants in the creation of our lives. We're moving from sitting back and watching our lives unfold from victim consciousness, false idols, and pedestaling others to save us, to self-resourcing, self-empowerment. This is the point where we remember our co-creative power. We are not observers, we are architects. With Neptune in Pisces, we've been moving beyond the veil. It's been super supportive in expansion, in spiritual development. During that timeline, we've been able to move beyond the veil, to meet the unseen, swimming in the waters of the unseen, feeling and touching the quantum field, the potential. Our consciousness has expanded. With Neptune in Aries, we harness this. We work with it, mold it. We realize we have the ability to shape and form our reality. And we realize that what's beyond the veil, the unseen, the mystery is real and available. It can be touched and felt, seen, integrated. We can work with this creative force rather than just letting it happen to us. The shadow of Neptune in Pisces is victim consciousness. Feeling that life is happening to us, that we don't have a say, that we simply wait for the next wave. And as Neptune moves into Aries, we're going to realize that we have the power to rewire our minds and in turn rewire our reality. We are not trapped. We are not victims. Aries is conviction, creation, initiation, action, movement, and force. It's the vehicle through which we find our power, we find our life force, we find our center point that can direct our manifestations. While Pluto in Aquarius is dissolving the systems and structures that don't serve our personal empowerment, Neptune is showing us where we can access it. If we dissolve all of the systems that have been without rewiring how we relate to this world, we're left to fend for ourselves in an unknown world. Neptune will help us learn how to harness our power, how to work with that co-creative force, how to find and access our power in a new way, how to set boundaries, individuate, access and prioritize our individualism as well as our interconnectedness. I say this often, but in this new world, we will all have our own individual role. I think Neptune and Aries will help us find that role. We've had to dissolve illusions, and I think that the beginning of this, especially the rest of 2025, as Neptune navigates its ingress into Aries, it's going to really be confronting, continuing to dissolve illusions. Where are we playing victim in our lives? Where are we waiting for life to happen to us? Where are we waiting to be saved? Where are we pedestaling leaders and celebrities, giving away our power? Neptune can either be revealing or lead us into further deception. We have to stay sober. We have to stay clear. We have to stay discerning to notice what's beneath the surface. Because Neptune can feel like a fog. In Aries, it will feel different. It might feel more like a fog of anger. So we have to work with it. We have to work with the emotions that are coming forward so that we can cut through and access the truth and the clarity in each moment. In somatic work, I would say that this is like moving from freeze to mobilization. The point where you begin to really feel your body, your muscles, again, where you can sense once again your innate power, the life force moving through your tissues, your innate power to co-create, to move, to choose, to carve, to push, to pull, to eject. This is like melting freeze. This is moving from surrender and submission to action and mobilization, agency. Neptune is moving from formlessness to form, from mutable water of Pisces to cardinal air of Aries, from disillusion, confusion, illusion, shapelessness to direction, action, and form, For better or worse, we're going to be mobilized by this transit. It boils down to what we're choosing. And in order to become fully aware of what we're choosing, we have to stay present. To stay present, we need to feel safe. To feel safe, we need to create intimacy with self. And this is the work. I see this Neptune and Aries transit really clearly. I think it is the integration of self. It's creating more intimacy with your center point, where you originate from, what's shaped and formed your reality, and how you can connect more with your innate life force, your truth, your power, your ability to choose, to discern, your agency. Even if the world goes up in flames, even if there's a World War III, remembering you get to choose. Even now, as so much is dissolving around us, there's confusion, illusion, deception, chaos. You get to choose what you do when you wake up each and every morning. You get to choose the frequency that you align with. You get to choose what you put in your body. You get to choose your thoughts. We're dissolving the Piscean age. We're moving from this age where we had to give away our power to be safe. We had to access our truth, our wisdom, our safety from a higher power, from someone else, from a middleman, a priest, a king, a queen, an emperor, a pope, a monk, a guru. And this is a lot of responsibility. And this is where we oftentimes default to being saved, where we're afraid to be truly connected to self, truly connected to our power. It's sometimes easier to just give that away so we don't have to face the layers of emotions and memories that keep us disconnected from that center point of self. So over the next week, over the next months, we're going to be confronted by the ways that we very subtly give away our power, where that's familiar and even comfortable and even safe, where we play victim, where we tell ourselves we can't do something because of outer circumstances. Neptune is showing us how we find our power in this next chapter. So wherever this 0 point of Aries lands in your chart, this is where you're going to be activated, where you're going to be initiated, where you're going to be asked to take the reins of your life, to sober up, to take responsibility. And I say this in the most loving way. We hold the power to change our lives, to change our circumstances. My hope is that everyone remembers their innate power. And like I said, 0 point of Aries is the creation point. It's where all things are formed. The entire zodiac begins here. So there's no better time than now to pay very close attention to what you're choosing, what you're consuming, and why. This will further be emphasized with Saturn's shift into Pisces in May. But we're in the more subtle realms with Neptune shifting into Aries. So these choices come from somewhere. Neptune is showing us where. And because this is a 14-year transit, Neptune will be in Aries until 2039. This takes time. This isn't something that shifts in 1 week. This is something that begins, like I said, to drip into our consciousness. So it's important to begin paying attention more and more. But I will say, when an outer planet ingresses or moves into a new sign, there's often a shift. We can feel it, almost like an old truck shifting gears. There can be confusion, chaos, blurred lines. It can be messy, especially with Saturn being involved, moving through the late degrees of Pisces. We're going to feel the push and pull between the past and the future, action, dissociation, surrender, mobilization. And Neptune is like fog. Its changes unfold through our consciousness until all of a sudden we realize that they're materialized in front of us. All of a sudden we're in a new reality. All of a sudden the ice melts and we realize the earth beneath us is different. So it's very important right now to tend to what's unconscious within us. The veil is thin so you can access it. Notice what you're noticing. See what you're seeing. let it download, take it in. Don't get too sucked into the story, but focus on letting it go, releasing, observing, and choosing differently. That's the key with Aries, is action. Maybe you start working with a new practitioner to work through some of these unconscious layers. Maybe you begin a new morning routine with the changing of seasons. It's a perfect time. Maybe you finally do the thing that you've been getting the ping to do for months or years. Individually, this all affects us differently, of course, but there's going to be a thawing of freeze, of confusion, of the fog. This is still a quite trippy time. We're still in these deep waters of Pisces as we start to feel more into Aries. The sun is there. Neptune is now there. But Venus and Mercury are still retrograding. The North Node is still in Pisces. Saturn is still in Pisces. So be gentle with yourself, but observe. And maybe just choose one thing this week that you're going to initiate in your daily routine, in your life. Maybe you're joining a support group. Maybe you're signing up to work with that practitioner. Maybe you're going on your daily walks. Maybe you're cutting down on phone time. Maybe you're turning your Wi-Fi off at night. Whatever it is, it's important. Whatever you've been getting pinged to do, now is the time. I'll talk more about this when Saturn shifts into Aries in May, because that's very significant when it comes down to daily activities, choices, discipline, routines, and rituals. On a global scale, this shift is significant. We've been seeing this trend of globalization, decentralization since 2011, really since, for many decades, but especially over the last 14 years. We are now connected to almost every country in the world through social media, through our phones, through the internet. We're able to travel to almost every country. People from all different cultures are beginning to mix and merge. Neptune and Pisces dissolve boundaries. So we've been dissolving boundaries in almost all aspects of life. Now we see this trend towards more nationalism or separatism, to what individuates us, to the cultures we identify with, to the practices, to the identities. It's having us look at where we belong. People might be seeking an identity or boxes to fit within, closed borders, separatism. There will be less trust in global systems, generic systems, and more focused on how can we create our own internal systems, our own systems within our own lives, our own smaller communities. And of course, there's a lower and higher octave to all of this energy. There's the shadow and there's the light. One of the major themes of this transit is that for the first 7 years, Neptune will form a sextile with Pluto, which is a supportive transit. So as Pluto begins to dissolve the systems, Neptune will show us how to connect with self to form new ones, to find our sovereignty, our sense of self, our individuation. The next 20 years will be about revolution, change, reform, rebirth. We're going to receive the dismantling and the revealing we need to make the changes with Pluto in Aquarius. And with Neptune's help, as we swim through the layers of our subconscious, we'll be able to awaken to our own personal, individual power and wisdom, becoming the architects of our reality, dissolving false idols and saviors, and instead finding that essence, that inner savior, that everlasting point within us where we can access our own truth, power, wisdom, and safety. Uranus and Gemini will support us in building new ways of connecting, communicating, the tools we really need to build this new world. I'll be talking more about this as Saturn moves into Aries, as Uranus moves into Gemini in July, and of course through 2026 when Saturn and Neptune meet at that 0 point of Aries in early 2026. These are the first glimpses into what the new world holds for us. This week might seem insignificant. It might feel like we're still in this liminal space. Things might not be taking shape or form quite yet. But we have to remember that each and every choice we make ripples throughout space and time. And when we're choosing a new reality, that reality has no choice but to begin to shape and form and materialize in our lives. This is a very auspicious time. We are in the pressure cooker, but that doesn't mean that we don't get to choose. That doesn't mean we lose our power. It actually means we have to double down on trusting our inner wisdom, our inner compass. It will be really fun to track this transit with you. It's a 14-year transit, so we'll be in it for the long run. And thank you, as always, for tuning in every single week, for being present, for investing in your own personal development, journey, evolution. Thank you for your support. Every time you share on social media, share with a friend or a family member or someone in your life who you think would resonate with this episode. It means so much. I'm so, so grateful. Thank you for being, and have a beautiful, beautiful week.